Good morning. I'm Kristen McIntyre, and this is my daughter Ella, and we're so happy to welcome you to this morning's Sunday service on December 13th, 2020. Ella and I have been spending a lot of time talking about some of our December family traditions, and one of our favorite memories from last year is attending North Chapel's Christmas Eve service. The church was full of people. There was candlelight and a happy energy in the air. And when the children's choir went to the front of the church, Ella, who was just 2, jumped out of her chair and ran to the front before her dad and I could stop her. We were overwhelmed with that feeling of anxiety and surprise that some parents may know when you wonder what chaos your child might create. But the adults who were in charge smiled and nodded at us. One whispered, "Just come close so that nothing goes wrong." And the choir, which had clearly been performing and practicing for a long time and was made of much older children, continued to sing. And Ella looked out at the church and swayed. And in that moment, I felt so grateful to be part of a community that is flexible and welcoming and good-humored, and also practical and strong. And these are characteristics that have been so important in 2020. Our family continues to be grateful to gather with you all virtually, to light candles, and to sing. And so this morning, we invite you to sing with us, All Beautiful, the March of Days.
Hello, my name is Laura Foley, and I'm speaking to you today from the snowy woods of Pomfret, Vermont. And last week I shared with you a poem about my father, his experiences in prison camp during World War II. Today I was thinking about my mother and wanting to bring her in, and really it's a poem I'll read is about kindness. And may we all find in our memories some experience of kindness. This is called learning by heart. Learning by heart. I was 7, couldn't sleep, fearing my French teacher, afraid I couldn't learn a line I had to memorize. Mom, trilling the night's loneliest hour at the piano, made up a lilting song to help me remember. I did, and still do. Her voice etched in tenderness, fingers running over the keys, somewhere deep inside me. Ulrika, come on. Come on.
I'm Don Ransom.
And I'm Susan Inouye.
Through the course of this pledge drive in recent weeks, we've seen a lot of different numbers displayed. These weren't numbers that delineated the number of dollars the North Chapel needs or the number of dollars owed, the cost of this, the cost of that. These have been numbers that represent the vital human heart of this church community. Numbers that have reminded us that we are the current caretakers and stewards of the North Chapel. We are part of a long continuum of people who have cared for and supported this community. Today, we want to start the numbers with the number of years through the good times and the challenging times that this continuum has supported and cared for the North Chapel.
186 years. That's a good long run.
A nice run. Although the North Chapel is made up of a diverse group of personalities, we are bound together by fundamental shared covenants, such as our belief that we are part of an interconnected web of life. We are therefore responsible for not only ourselves, but also for the well-being of all the life forms on this planet and for the very planet itself. In this regard, the North Chapel is a steward of social and environmental justice. If you believe that the North Chapel is a meaningful part of your life, and if you believe it is critically important to have an honest, liberal, socially conscious voice in the larger community, I would like to pose this question. How high are you willing to prioritize supporting the North Chapel in your personal list of financial priorities?
Beyond our basic needs, we hope your spirituality and being connected with one another as supportive members of North Chapel will be one of your top 3 or 4 priorities.
And in the face of this pandemic that continues to challenge all of us and forces us to do church and just about everything else differently, I'd also like to ask this question. How many times this year will you have the opportunity to step up and show how much you support and care for the North Chapel during this historically challenging period?
One time. There is only one pledge drive a year.
Since we transitioned to our online Sunday services about 9 months ago, our services have been viewed almost 10,000 times.
We believe this number reflects not only the message being delivered, but also on the care with which it's being delivered.
And the final number of this pledge drive message is the percentage we hope that you are willing to increase your pledge this year at this extraordinary time in the history of the North Chapel.
10% is what we hope you will increase your pledge this year. Thank you for your generosity, and thank you for supporting North Chapel.
Thank you.
There are birds on the roof of my mother's house, and I have no stones to chase them away. There are birds on the roof of my mother's house, and they will sit on my own roof one day, and they fly at the windows, and they fly at the doors. Where does she get the strength to fight them anymore? She counts all her children as a shield against the pain and lifts her eyes to the sky like a flower to the rain. I am my mother's son, because I do precisely this. Like her, I lift my eyes to the sky when things get hard. And like a poet named Maria Rainer Rilke, I love the dark hours of my being. Good morning and good Sunday. I hope that this new day finds you well. It's good to be together. My name is Leon Dunkley. I serve as minister here at North Universalist Chapel Society, or North Chapel, here in Woodstock, Vermont. Today is Sunday, December the 13th, and the title of this morning's reflection is I Love the Dark Hours of My Being. 20 months ago, in April of 2019, BC, meaning before COVID. As Holy Week began, the darkness of the deepest days of December was broken, was shattered in the heart of Paris by a great and terrible light. Notre Dame Cathedral was all ablaze. Paris was burning. Notre Dame Cathedral is an ancient structure. It is a tremendous structure, and the ways that we have used it over time, the ways that we have laughed and cried in it, the ways that we have lived and died in it, have imbued this building with a vitality. In a matter of speaking, it has a life of its own. Notre Dame Cathedral has been described as a pinnacle of medieval engineering. The cathedral can hold 9,000 worshipers, and its 100-foot tall walls contain more than 3,200 square feet of glass. It has a complex of timbers above, just below the roof supporting it, that were hand-hewn from oak trees from centuries ago. It's surrounded by 28 flying buttresses that support those great stone walls from the outside. Notre Dame is something else entirely. It is as an admirer once called it, one of humanity's greatest artistic and architectural achievements. This great project got underway in 1163, 4 years before Oxford University was founded in England, 473 years before Harvard was founded, and 606 years before Dartmouth was. And just to provide 1163 with a little bit of historical context, Columbus would not be born in Italy for another 288 years. And most impressively, North Chapel here in Woodstock, also one of humanity's greatest achievements, would not be dedicated for just shy of 7 centuries. Clearly, the Notre Dame Cathedral has an incredible history. None of this is lost on us, and yet on the 15th day of April in the year 2019, the great cathedral itself was nearly lost. It was the beginning of Holy Week. Holy Week is a very special time. As Christian theologians remind us, all time is holy because all time is God's gift to us. The theologians name one week Holy Week because, and this I quote, "It takes us to the very heart of God's gift to us. Holy Week is the story of a journey. For Jesus, it is a journey from the false triumph of Palm Sunday to the true triumph of Easter Sunday." On Palm Sunday, they cry out, "Hosanna," because they see Jesus as the king that is going to lead them to a military victory. That's a false triumph. On Good Friday, the same crowd cries out, "Crucify him," because that is the triumph that they want. The triumph that we see on Easter Sunday is the true triumph of life over death and the triumph of self-sacrificing love. End quote. What must it have been like to be at the beginning of that sacred time and to walk down Main Street in Paris and see the city's most beloved cathedral all ablaze? In a manner of speaking, our house was on fire, shattering the night at the heart of the city with a dangerous and terrible flame. Oh, how she burns. Oh, how she burned that day. It was a terrible fire. And the sirens wailed, and the fire trucks stationed themselves strategically around the cathedral, drawing water from the Seine, the river that runs through the city. The ladder trucks extended themselves as high as they could go, but fell far short of the 226 feet that was required of them. The fire had started above the dome of stone, above the nave or the central part of the sanctuary. Protecting that stone dome from wind and weathering was a great lattice of timbers, oak trees cut by hand and arranged in a most beautiful and spectacular way to support a lead roof above. Now, the cathedral itself was built in the form of a cross. The domes of stone, impossibly high above the floor of the sanctuary, followed this architecture precisely, as did the great lattice work of timbers, and therefore as did the terrible, terrible fire. Thousands of people gathered that night to bear witness to the blaze, bringing flowers in their hands, bringing children in their arms, bringing songs in their hearts and prayer and hope and silence. Thousands gathered. Something beautiful was being lost to us. And they sang, "Ave Maria, gratia plena, Ave Dominus tecum, benedictu tu in mulieribus, et benedictus fructus ventris tue, Jesu. Ave Maria, Virgin of the sky, sovereign of thanksgiving and loving mother, accept the fervent prayer of everybody. Do not refuse to this lost person love, truce in his pain. My lost soul turns to you and full of repentment, humbles at your feet. It invokes you and waits for the true peace that only you can give." What a great and terrible night it was, that 15th day of April, some 20 months ago, back in the spring of 2019, when thousands gathered there witnessing. Thousands watched in sorrows as the spire burned past its breaking point and fell, as it crashed through the burning tiles of the roof and through the great lattice structure of hand-hewn oak beneath, as it fell through, shattering the vaulted stone dome that sheltered the sanctuary for the lion's share of a millennium. The world looked on in great sadness and in shock and in prayer, and we joined in the singing, and the prophets and the priests and the presidents made their great proclamations about our healing, about our rebuilding of that which had fallen. It was not an architectural achievement that we passionately pledged to rebuild. Surely there has been and there will be great effort and great expense that it will be dedicated to the physicality of that recovery, to the church of wood and stone, as my old minister used to say. At the same time, there has been and there will be a great effort and great expense dedicated to the spirit that physicality both protects and represents, to the church of blood and bone, as my old minister used to say. For when the great steeple fell at Notre Dame, something fell within us as well. The physicality of sacred places is reflexive, it's interactive. It interacts with us over time and over distance. The physicality of a place is also metaphysical. When we look out in an ocean, something resonates in us. Starlight shines in outer space and in inner space as well. This is why we dream of heaven and build rocket ships that will take us there. This is why we think we go there when we die. The physical and metaphysical are connected. The physical church represents much deeper things. And I think that our bridges and our buildings and grounds committee may identify with this. They may have some insight. I can't tell you the number of times that I've arrived here at North Chapel to find some member or another of that committee or one of its volunteers hard at work, planting care in flower boxes, raking leaves and composting them, shoveling snow from steps and doorways, sanding the floor of the sanctuary, cleaning rugs and cleaning windows, cleaning our dishes that we've left out that we should not have, placing the hymnals neatly in the back pockets of the pews in the sanctuary, arranging flowers beautifully on Sunday morning, poring over the details of construction projects, planning the practical architectures of sacred life. Sacred life, which is also normal life, because all life is holy. Churches represent much more than they are. So when there's a fire, when steeples fall, something falls within us as well. Of course it does. The fire at Notre Dame started in the timbers, in the whole oak structure that supported the roof, and the fire spilled over into the sanctuary, and the steeple fell and pierced the domes, the Gothic stone vaults that protected the sanctuary. There was a sudden hole in the roof that had protected us. I rather like the way that my friend and colleague, Reverend Jake Morrill, put it. He saw the fire at Notre Dame as an invitation to grieve all that is being lost or destroyed in our world. He saw it as an invitation for us to dedicate ourselves to the protection of that which is sacred, not only in Paris, but wherever the sacred lies, which is everywhere. Jake wrote, "Yesterday, with the fire, maybe some awe was reawakened. The reminder of what is precious. And maybe it can inspire us not only to resolve to protect what is holy, but also the capacity to defend our neighbors and our children from acts of desecration that diminish us all. This fire is not the end of the story. It is just what is true today." And this part of the story, with so much of what is yet to come, depending on if we let our scarred over hearts stay a little tender and full, like they were yesterday. The burning of the cathedral in Notre Dame is an opportunity for us to open our hearts. When the fire fell into the sanctuary, it carried with it a toxic dust. This dust came from the roof tiles that were burning, and they poured through the doorways. This dust poured through the doorways, and it covered the windows, and it shut out the light. Rooftops, doorways, and windows. The poet writes, "There are birds on the roof of my mother's house, and I have no stones to chase them away. The birds on the roof of my mother's house will sit on my own roof someday. They fly at the window. They fly at the door. Where does she get the strength to fight them anymore? She counts all her children as a shield against the pain and lifts her eyes to the sky like a flower to the rain." I do this. When I find myself running out of strength, I lift my eyes to the sky. When I need to be reminded of the light that lives within, when I need to see its echo or its reflection in the light that is beyond me, I do this. I lift my eyes to the sky. I look for the light. I lift my eyes, just like a flower lifts itself to the rain. And I appreciate others of us who can and who do. Others who do whatever they can to generate a little light. It doesn't take much sometimes. Other times, it takes a whole lot of work. I think of scientists, one in particular, who understand this very well, maybe better than all of the rest of us. I think of a French scientist. I think of a woman named Claudine Louisel. She is a glass conservation scientist. I didn't even know there was such a thing. And she works for an organization called the Research Center for French Historic Monuments. She fully engaged in the wake of the crisis. And she said it was really painful to see the catastrophe on TV. I was looking to see what had happened to the windows, and of course it was very difficult to get a good idea of what was happening. There is a before and after 15 April for historic monuments. That day marked a turning point in her life. That date marks a turning point for us as well. Remember, Notre Dame Cathedral has 32,000 square feet of stained glass. Fortunately, very little of the glass was destroyed by the fire, but all of it was damaged by the toxic dust that the fire produced. Claudine Louisel used scientific methods and calibrated instruments and precise techniques to determine the best path forward in Notre Dame's recovery. To this end, she used a handheld digital microscope to investigate the levels of lead powder on the stained glass. Fortunately, these windows had not been cleaned in 100 years, so the lead dust settled on top of a layer of dust and not on the glass itself. A team of scientists have become part of a great process. They've removed whole sections of the stained glass and have taken them to special laboratories. It's a very elaborate process requiring fine brushes, precision vacuum cleaners, and X-ray spectroscopy. This time-consuming and painstaking process is designed to produce a single result, the restoration of the glass that conditions the light of the sanctuary. Both the sunlight that comes from outside and the soul shine that comes from within. What is happening within the Notre Dame Cathedral is also what is happening inside of us. If a great fire comes, and if the roof falls in, and if we forget how to save ourselves, we can find a way, and we have found a way, and we will continue to do so. We will find a way of dusting off the glass for the shining and receiving of light, for the exchange of gifts of spirit, possibility, and new birth. December is a time of darkness. It is a time of Advent, the season of waiting. This is a moment of anticipation, a moment of the looking forward to. It is a moment of looking through the darkness to find the light. In the hymn we sang, all beautiful in the march of days. The second verse reads as follows: over white expanses sparkling clear, the radiant morns unfurl. The solemn splendors of the night burn brighter through the cold. And yet, this was not the case in Gay Paris. Not in April 20 months ago, not in spirit at any rate. It was not a solemn splendor that was burning in the cold. It was part of us. If my colleague Jake Morrell is right, if by fire awe was awakened on that fateful day, if loss is not the end of the story, and if recovery is possible, then let us stand with our scarred over hearts and let them stay a little tender and full for a while. For other things, newer things are possible. There is a point, and here's the point to all of this. We can learn to enjoy the dark hours of our being. This is a time when so much is broken, and there are so many crises, and there is so much catastrophe all around us. Yet and still, through and against these challenges, we shine. We shine in both the darkness and the light. Boldly we stand, with care and also with confidence. We embrace all that there is. Somewhere within us, we are strong enough for this now. We know that there are ways to find a miracle in everything, embracing the daytime and the night, embracing the darkness and the light. We can enjoy the dark hours of our being. That's the implicit challenge of each day within winter's reach. We can love the dark hours of our being. This idea comes from a poem by Rainer Maria Rilke. This poem has inspired this morning's reflection. I love the dark hours of my being. My mind deepens into them, and there I can find, as in old letters, the days of my life already lived, and held like a legend and understood. Then known, the knowing comes. I can open to another life that's wide and timeless. So I am sometimes like a tree rustling over a grave and making real the dream of the one its living roots embrace. A dream once lost among sorrow and songs. I enjoyed this poem. I wonder if its dream once lost is found somewhere in each of us. For are not we in part those old ones shining forth? In this time of patience and anticipation, is it not in part ourselves that are eager to be born? Imagine what is possible. Just imagine. May it be so. Blessed be. And amen.
Longer days are on the we will rise.